We are live, so to speak. I defer to Jane.
Andy, could you bring Dave over to panelist, please?
Oh yeah, sorry, I tried doing that. Maybe it didn't
Oh,
occur.
okay. Well, hi, everybody. It's been a while since we met as a group, skipping August and then having to reschedule to this week. I'm losing my voice, so I'm going to speak as little as I can.
Are
And
you
we,
all right? Do you, can I interrupt? Sounds like a bad cold. You okay?
yeah, I think it's a flu, but I'm on the mend. Yesterday wasn't pretty, but thank you.
COVID is back, not to get you worried, but
I
it's
know
bad.
it could be, and we were traveling. I think my husband gave it to me. He was traveling before we traveled, so it's a whole menagerie of germs.
Well, good luck.
Thank you. Um, so do we have anyone from the public in terms of for comments? I don't see anybody.
Hi, you don't have anybody remotely? Come on in. Sorry, I was just projecting on the screen, so you might want to sit on the side. Yeah, no audience online or present anyway.
I sent around the meeting notes yesterday, and I have to say we did something a little different. We had a list of action items, and as far as I understand, I think we did them all. So, congratulations, committee. um, does anyone have any comments or concerns about those notes before we post them? All right, hearing none. Sarah,
Molly just joined us as well.
oh, good. Hey, Molly. Sarah, could you get that posted then?
Yes, I'll get it posted.
Thank you.
Do you have any comments on the last meeting?
No. All good.
All right, we have, excuse me, Jordy here, and he is going to, he's offered, and thank you, Jordy, to give us a quick update on plans for the boardwalk. And Andy, I sent you over those documents, so if you could coordinate with Jordy and when to share them.
Yeah, Julie, I defer to you. I think you might want the plan view first, right?
I think that's a good one to pull up. So I'll just try to do a little monologue here and then, try to answer questions to the best of my ability. The boardwalk, I've been around long enough, apparently, that things come around, right? So the boardwalk, we redid the boardwalk about 25 years ago, redecking it and extending it. And and now there are problems, as anyone who's walked on it, with a number of the boards, in terms of flaking um, and rising up boards and some rot and so forth. So we got a CPC grant of $75,000 to do a feasibility study because our DPS and Waterfront Trust have been trying like a number of different short-term repairs and haven't really known how to proceed. And so we've hired GEI, who's the marine engineering firm that did the bulkhead project recently, and to basically give us some guidance on how to approach this situation, weighing lots of different factors. So we're aiming for a public meeting in mid-November, so a couple of months from now, basically. The GEI has done an inventory and an assessment of the existing conditions, not only of the decking itself, but also the subsurface conditions. Thankfully, the subsurface conditions are actually better than we thought. 90% of the stringers are actually in good shape. And the angle irons connecting them to the concrete sonotubes are all in good shape, et cetera, et cetera. So it's primarily the decking and the fasteners that have been problematic. We have pretty thick 3-inch Ipe, a tropical hardwood called Ipe, boards on there for the past quarter century. And the steel fasteners that were used to secure them down to the pressure treated stringers below, actually a number of those steel fasteners it turns out steel corrodes inside of pressure-treated wood. Not something I knew 25 years ago, but it's pretty interesting to see some of these old steel fasteners where the threads are basically gone. So that's one reason why some of this wood is cupping up and rising up. Anyway, so there's a written report coming, which is including this this color-coded figure that we have up on the screen here. What this is basically communicating is that those two sections in green are in pretty good shape. There's some minor repairs, but that section at the base of the embayment, plus another piece of the boardwalk along the eastern run, are in decent shape and actually don't have to be taken up, except for sort of some individual repairs. And then the portions in red as well as yellow do need to be taken up, and it's the consultant is assuming that we can salvage and harvest actually a number of those IPE boards and reinstall them in those yellow areas. So under this sort of approach, the green would be staying essentially as is, and the yellow would be also IPE boards, the good boards salvaged from the rest of the boardwalk. And then the red areas would be new material, new decking. And so I think it's something like 60% or so of new material is needed. Let's see. Part of the task for the consultant is to do an alternatives analysis of materials and how we should proceed. That's in process. The inventory and assessment of existing conditions is a written report. We should have that in about a week, which we'll post to the website. And they're working on the alternatives analysis and pros and cons of a bunch of different materials. I don't want to use the IPE wood again, and IPE has also gotten more rare and endangered than it was when we used it 25 years ago. There are other tropical hardwoods like Purple Heart, which we have on our other boardwalks, like the Rail Trail Cashman Park boardwalk, and some of the other bridges and boardwalks on the rail trail, which has actually functioned very well. Other alternatives include composite plastic lumber. We learned something new about, it's called acetate, if I'm saying that right. Acetate wood is essentially pickled wood, which repels water. So, and there are some other options as well. So we're going to have, I think, a pretty robust alternatives analysis with a bunch of different factors: cost and availability and ecological impact and durability and all these other things for us to work on. We're also talking with them about the size and thickness of the decking. We have these 3-inch boards, which is a very heavy loading. And we've started talking with them about having potentially a thinner deck, which would save a couple $100,000 in material costs. And we have to weigh the difference in loading capacity in terms of what kind of maintenance vehicles could be on there. Let's see. I'm just trying to move through this relatively quickly. We've submitted based on the state's deadlines, we submitted a grant application to the Seaport Economic Council just a little while ago for funding the project, the lion's share of the project, and we should find out, I believe, in January whether that's approved. That the basis of design for that one was the Purple Heart, but that's not. We're still sort of in the feasibility study stage for that. There is a 20% match requirement, which would be met by both this existing CPC funding and $50,000 from the Waterfront Trust, plus probably another CPC request coming from us to make up the balance. From a sea level rise perspective, this profile cross section that Andy just pulled up, this shows the, in red, they're showing the cross section of the existing boardwalk on top of the stringers, on top of the sonotubes, with the bulkhead and the Merrimack River to the right there. And so the existing elevation is 8.4. And looking at NOAA's projections for 25 years from now, the intermediate and intermediate high and high scenarios for the highest astronomical tides continue to be below our existing boardwalk level. So basically the takeaway from that is it is highly likely and should be anticipated that we, the city, the larger we, the community, will need to rebuild and raise this boardwalk sometime later in the century, but that it's not cost effective or feasible or necessary to do that right now. We just gotten through the big Market Landing Park expansion project, which was building the edge of the park to this existing elevation of the boardwalk, with all these connecting hardscape pathways and plazas and so forth. It will be a fairly monumental task to raise everything up when we need to do that. But in the meantime, the boardwalk is built to withstand occasional storm surge and flooding like we have occasionally had over the years. Unlike buildings and utility infrastructure and so forth, the boardwalk itself is not particularly vulnerable to those events, and the inspections have actually underlined that the materials are in decent shape, and the occasional inundation has not hurt the structure of the boardwalk. It takes it out of service for people to use it on those storm occasions. But that's been the thinking and the rationale for how we're approaching addressing the boardwalk for the next 25 years. And then presumably I'm not going to be around here in 25 years to redo it again. We'll see. But that'll probably be for the next generation to grapple with. So I think that's about it. We're going to suggest some short-term repairs if we can get funding from the Waterfront Trust, maybe the city, but to refasten down a number of these boards. When we had the contractor working with the engineer going through there with some better fasteners, they were able to suck those boards back down. And so that's not going to address all the concerns by any means, but it's going to reduce some of those trip hazards out there. So maybe I'll stop there and just see if there's any questions.
Hey, Jordy, it's Connie. Firstly, thank you. That was hugely informative. I was not aware of any of this, but it's I love good news, and this sounds like a lot of better news than we were necessarily expecting.
Right.
Couple of questions. So I heard you say that there was a public meeting date that you're targeting for mid-November, and maybe you said it and I missed it, but when is the expected report date?
We have there's a couple of sort of interim deliverables. So within about a week, we should have the first one, which is this inventory and assessment, including these figures, and just basically a write-up and images and so forth that can kind of comprehensively show this is what we're dealing with. This is the situation on the boardwalk. And then we're working over the course of the next month or so on this alternatives analysis. We'll have another committee project meeting to help guide that process. And then that'll be written up and we'll choose a date in November. So we don't have exact dates for some of those subsequent deliverables or the public meeting, but that's kind of the general time frame.
Okay, two more questions. One, the fastening work, like because, I've been down there, I want the dog down there quite a bit. There is a lot, I don't need to tell you, that is popping up for sure. So this sort of, Band-Aid of fastening them down that, I heard you say you're gonna look to the Waterfront Trust, if not, then the city, just range of, are we talking tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands? What are we talking?
No, it was
5,000?
5,000. It was 5,000, which was just a couple of days for a small crew of a couple of guys to get out there. That was what was quoted to us. So it's a very manageable number. And when we had our project meeting a couple of days ago, we asked the Waterfront Trust for that. They were having a meeting this week, and we're going to get back to us. And so we're going to have to see how that plays out over the next few days, because we really want to do that work this fall, sort of as soon as possible.
You are full of good news today. I love that. My last question is around the e-pay. So as you say, it is, it's very rare anymore. It's also exceedingly expensive because of its rarity. Is there an opportunity to reuse it not only around the city? What I'm trying to really get at more than anything else is to stop the harvesting of the e-pay. So, can we sell it to somebody else? Can we use it somewhere else? Is it reusable, what we have there?
No, it's a good question, and we have been talking. I've been talking directly with our main consultant at GEI, as well as some timber suppliers and other people about questions of salvage and reuse and so forth. So certainly, as I was trying to articulate, we want to be able to reuse as much as we can on site. So the best approach ecologically and economically is keep what you have, reuse what you can. And so we have those general percentages based on that. A lot of these pieces of wood there's not only checking at the ends, but they have splits that are running down the full length of the planks. They are not necessarily very desirable pieces of wood. But that said, I've been talking with our consultants about a range of options to try to make sure as much as we can that the contractor isn't just sending them off to a landfill or something like that. I think it would be a mistake for us to try to stockpile and sell the material ourselves. I think that's a recipe for a lot of problems. But I do think there are options there are companies out there that do buy salvaged wood, from old barns and that sort of thing. And there are, Boston Building Resources, I think they're called. You can donate building materials and someone can reuse them as landscaping timbers and things like that. So we'll have to figure that out, but that's definitely something we're keeping in mind.
Right,
Yes,
fantastic. I'm not looking to make money off of it, really. I'm just looking to make sure it gets used.
It strikes me, I actually was walking down there a few weeks ago and I was looking at it and it was obvious that there were things that needed to be replaced. I was unaware of this plan and it would be ideal for it to be made available to homeowners who want to build raised beds.
Exactly.
For gardens.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like.
As long as it's
perfect-
reused, that's
perfect
all I
material for it.
Yeah.
And, and it's pretty much rot resistant, not rot proof, but rot
Yeah.
resistant, yeah.
Exactly. All right, thanks so much, Jordan.
Yeah,
Jordan,
thanks.
Barry, Connell. A couple questions. Did you talk about the possibility of flipping them over?
And
Which
we
is-
have talked about that, and the engineers are making some of their assumptions about salvage and reuse based on looking at both sides, of the existing decking and comparing the weathering and so forth. The cracks do go are not just limited to the surface, the part on top.
Yeah.
Barb?
Jordy,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
guys,
was
I have
just-
a few questions. The second question is, what is the difference, distance between the stringers? Are they on 6-foot centers, on 8-foot centers?
So that's a good question. So the stringers are there based on having this quite a beefy timber
Yeah.
to span that length. So as we're looking at some of these alternative options, whether it's the composite plastic lumber or a thinner decking board, part of that equation is putting in intermediate subsurface framework. And even with doing that to sort of fill in the gaps to a more standard spacing, it would be, on the one hand, it would be essentially more work for the contractor, because they would not only be dealing with the decking, they'd be dealing with that subsurface structural support, but it would be still a lot less costly to do that work and have the material cost be lower for the so that's sort of in the mix as well.
Okay. The final question that I have is, do you look at Meranti as a possibility? It's a fairly common decking material, although I think it shares the same problem that Ipe does in terms of sustainability.
That's a tropical hardwood you're referencing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've talked with the timber supplier that we used for the boardwalk, the Cashman Park Rail Trail boardwalk, which his whole approach is certified tropical hardwoods, that can be certified sustainable. So he's he has decades and decades of experience, and he's a really good resource for us. We've talked about a couple of different species. So far, he is recommending, as well as our engineer, recommending the Purple Heart, and we also have some very local track record and experience with that here in Newburyport. So at least on the tropical hardwood side, we're looking at several different species, but that's the one that seems to be rising towards the top for that alternative at this point.
Okay. Well, I guess I lied that I have one more question. The aesthetics are important, and I'm just wondering about the transition from what's on the map, the good boards, which are green, and the red. How do you expect to manage that transition? Are you gonna grind the surface of the old stuff just to create a newer surface, or what?
Sorry, this is Jane. I'm going to interrupt because we have so much else on the agenda. If we could keep the questions related possibly to resiliency, and then perhaps other questions could be taken up during the public meeting.
Fair enough.
Or asked Jordy directly, that would be great. Sorry, hope you all can hear me. So Jordy, if you want to address that fairly quickly, and then I think we have time for one more, and Barbara's had her hand up for quite a while.
It's okay. Well, it was just a quick thing. I was just gonna say, if you go with the thinner boards, then you're gonna need more boards, right? And
You don't necessarily need more boards. You're getting 5/4 boards or 2-inch boards as opposed to 3-inch boards.
Yeah, but you don't need as much support underneath. Some of that additional support may not be needed depending on the thickness, right, Jordy? The reinforcement that we had talked about.
Yeah, the thinner you go, the more reinforcement you might need.
yeah, I was just thinking about the transition, but that's not resiliency, so I would say move on, move on from that.
Aesthetics and appearance do make a difference, and we want to keep that in mind. But I think there's going to be, and we'll make it so that there's, from a sort of universal access point of view, it's as smooth as possible. But there will be an appearance difference for the sort of two different sections of boardwalk, and I think that's okay.
Yeah, mine was more safety.
All right, Jane, is that good?
That is, thank you so much, Jordy. You're welcome to hang out with us, but if you have
Should I
to go.
jump into the wastewater treatment?
Oh, right,
flood
yes.
walls?
Yeah, that would be great. Thank
I'll
you.
try to be more succinct. So John Eric and I just got off of a project meeting about that with our consultant PSC. That project forward moving, that we've been working on that for a good long while, but that's moving forward well at this point. That's an approximately $4 million project based on our preliminary cost estimates for the flood walls and the pumps and the drainage work associated with protecting the rest of the plant. As you all remember, we did the revetment and the berm with the rail trail on top a few years ago as the protection against the river, and we were choosing the 14-foot elevation as the height of that based on the existing height of Water Street, because the existing height of Water Street is the low point where any kind of encircling flooding is going to come in. And so similarly, we're working on with that sort of elevation in terms of extending the perpendicular walls back to Water Street, and then addressing the pumps and drainage work to keep water down that goes inside there. We worked a lot with Barbara and the others on the Concom and received the order of conditions in maybe 3 weeks ago, something like that. And the city council also approved this $100,000 transfer for moving on to final construction documents. So that is in process. The consultant is telling us he has a November 1st target for trying to provide us with the draft of that. We have a little bit more state permitting to do in terms of a notice of project change for MIPA and a minor project modification for Chapter 91, but I think that'll be just procedural. We also have a CZM Coastal Resilience Grant program request out there. Sarah worked on that a lot with Nancy and me. So that's a pending grant request that we put in for $2 million for this $4 million project. According to communication from Patricia Bowie, the grants manager, they're supposed to be making their decisions in September. It is September, so we'll see. We'll get back to her in a week or so if we don't hear from them. But we've had our fingers crossed about that. The other option is sewer debt and rates and financing through the city, but it would be certainly great to get a big grant like this to help this project move forward and protect what is probably one of the most critical infrastructure assets the city has.
Yeah, fingers crossed on that grant. Does anyone have any questions for Jordy on the sidewalls? I guess I scared her.
Just one quick question. Do you have any concern if we get that grant that you'd be able to stage it so that you can do half the work or whatever is able to be funded, or would that force a decision to come up with the rest of the money in a faster time frame?
We would be looking to do the latter, to force the whole thing. It would be very uneconomic to say, well, we'll build half the sidewall or something like that. So I think we would be using that as leverage to find the rest of the funding.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll just add to that, I mean, obviously, I say every time I try to predict what the council will do, I stop myself and say I should never predict what the council will or won't do. And obviously I'm leaving council as well, but I haven't heard any real resistance to any of this. I mean, even Councilor Z, which, this is in Sharif's ward, he has concerns about aesthetics to the neighboring households, as he should as a ward councilor, but he is certainly very supportive of the project. I don't think you're gonna run into a $2 million challenge on that. If we get a $2 million grant, I don't imagine a world where there's pushback on the other 2 million. I frankly don't even have a lot of, I can't imagine a world where we'd say no to the whole 4 million if we have to do it. I mean, it's such a valuable asset to not, protect our
Yeah.
wastewater treatment facility would be short-sighted, to say the least.
And the river.
And the river, yeah.
I have a quick question, on that grant, because that would be amazing if we did get the grant. It's the CZM, Coastal Resiliency Grant that was applied for, is that correct?
Yes.
And did anything get incorporated into the application that wasn't a sort of hard infrastructure element in order to sort of satisfy CZM's priorities around green infrastructure?
It's a good question. So the grant, that grant program does have a very specific category for retrofit or relocation of hard infrastructure, and with a focus on wastewater treatment facilities. So I know what we worked a lot with CZM when we were building the revetment and the berm. And I think Julia's probably alluding to that in terms of CZM's general focus on green infrastructure. In this case, there's no possible way to protect the plant using green infrastructure, and so that is not a sort of alternative suggested. We have to do this with the existing plant in this existing location with the physical space we have.
Yeah, I understood. I guess that's why I was asking. I didn't realize that CZM had a very special slot for hard infrastructure within that grant program. That might be new, and if so, then that's fantastic, and maybe this is a perfect match.
Well, I think you're correct that like from their general lens, they probably prefer to do the softer landscape test on things, right? The question here is, will they be willing to,
Yeah, that's great.
Oh, yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, we should have done that.
Any other questions for Jordy on the sidewalls?
The manufactured marsh
Talk
factory.
about Ad Hoc, just because I need to go.
It's still.
I hear a lot of talking back there.
Yeah, no questions for Jordy, it looks like.
Sorry, what we're
All
talking
right.
about, I am talking to John Eric about whether or not to leapfrog him in the Plum Island Turnpike feasibility study for the water ad hoc, just because I do need to leave to go to the Water Sewer Commission meeting, which is at 4, and
Okay.
so he says he thinks he only needs 10 minutes, so.
No, so Kristen.
So Jordy, it sounds like we're done with you. But you're welcome to hang if you want.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jordy.
Thanks, Jordy.
Thanks, Jordy. Is Kristen on?
Yes, she was.
I'm on. Hi.
So Kristen, what I'm thinking is that you and I know that the question we're asking should be an easy question. I don't think it's gonna be difficult at all. Our discussion is gonna be longer than the question. So my vote is to have Connie go first. I mean, I know that sounds, but
Agreed.
she has a water commission meeting, and I think even though ours is easy, she doesn't need to vote on it because the questions.
That's fine. I don't need to leave it for. That's fine with me.
All right, I'm gonna make the executive decision. Connie, you're on.
All right, fantastic. John and Eric and I have already talked about the turnpike as well. So yeah, so the water, just a little bit of background on this ad hoc, just in case somebody in the room doesn't understand, but we as a council felt very sort of out of the loop about sort of how the prioritization discussions had happened with the water infrastructure issues that the city is facing as a whole. And I'm not digging on the administration there, but these are really expensive projects, and certainly the administration, I'm not necessarily saying they went about it poorly. It's just we as a council didn't have a lot of insight into that, and as we went through the budget process, we ended up with more questions than answers. And frankly, I think a lot of the public hasn't really had a lot of insight into a lot of the work that went into that as well. And so as a result of that, we decided, a couple of us on council decided to formulate an idea around creating an ad hoc council committee to discuss the prioritization of the water infrastructure projects. And so that went through, it was unanimously voted in by the council. We had our first meeting last week, where we really just did sort of structural work around voting in a chair, which is myself, but also talking about when we wanted to meet, how we wanted to meet, how we wanted to structure our meetings, those sorts of things. I think the most important thing, and I am looking to everyone to help me in advertising this, is on Monday night, the 29th. And unfortunately, the location is a little bit in flux right now because evidently we were using the library conference room, but the internet is dead in the conference room at the library, and we need OWL to be able to make it hybrid, da-dee-da-da. I will get back to everybody about what's in the end going to happen there. But the meeting on Monday night, we are hoping for a lot of the public to come. We're going to have John Eric and Peter King, who is the new water superintendent, present in a prioritized fashion just what the technical aspects are, what the entirety of all the water projects are, and the technical aspects of it. So it's really more of an information dump for the council, the public, anybody who wants to attend, to really understand what all the projects are. We, in our first meeting, when we it all seems so hard to get our arms around all these projects as it is. Peter King, I think, very astutely brought up that, if we were to look at a $20 million upgrade to our water treatment facility to put in all the filtration process to get PFAS out of our water, that we would essentially be spending $20 million to put an addition on a 40-year-old building. That maybe that doesn't make more sense. Maybe it makes more sense to build a new water treatment facility with this addition to it, which in the end obviously would be cheaper than doing an addition and then building a new facility after. But it can, we already have very big projects to manage, and this just sort of makes the scope even larger. But having said that, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be looking at this in a very holistic fashion. And so it's going to be all of essentially the projects that we already are, sort of floating around as it is, as well as potentially a new facility. And even with that, would we want to look at a new facility that is a reverse osmosis plant, which comes with a whole other host of issues and concerns, right? But so the idea on Monday night is to just put all of these things on the table so that everybody can start from the same page. And then from there, this ad hoc will work through the various aspects of the projects. And then the outcome of this particular ad hoc would be a report that suggests prioritization to the administration. And so, to be clear, the mayor or whoever will be mayor come January could, do absolutely nothing with that report. But at the very least, at the end of the day, the council is much more informed, the process is much more informed, and the public is much more informed. And I, for one, will call all of that a win. So I am chairing it. Again, I'm not running for council again, so I will not be here in the new council to sort of discuss that, but this will be a very good tool for the next council to then work from to have a firmer understanding of all the different water projects.
But you won't have financial costs associated with that.
Well, there already are financial costs. The new treatment facility, and especially an RO facility, we could make back of the envelope, rough estimates on such things. Obviously it would try.
You could see like who else has done one.
And that's exactly it. I asked Peter in the meeting the other day to estimate that, and that I would not hold him to it. He said a new facility would be, sort of, I think he said roughly 25 million, an RO facility would be double of that. So
35 is, yeah.
So, these are all things we would have to.
Last time we did it, we looked at an RO and an RO addition to clean up the taste in the water.
Yep.
We weren't thinking about PFAS. And it added another 8 million to the 26 million rather than we were spending at the time.
Yeah, and Jane very astutely in the meeting brought up the fact that RO, in a subsequent meeting with John, Eric, and Peter, RO has a lot of waste associated with it, which will have a cost to it, but it's also extremely energy intensive to do an RO facility, so
Yep.
there are
Mission
certainly
cost.
downsides, but we should be looking at, because if we do an RO facility, we could potentially be taking a feed from the Merrimack, which would
Right.
make all of the Indian Hill process, you know,
Yeah.
you know, we'd save all that money, we wouldn't have to do all of those things, but we should be looking at all of this very holistically.
Yeah.
And that is, you know, like I say, Monday night is just, what are all the projects?
Yeah.
It's just a big information download, and then from there, the whole purpose of this ad hoc is to try to prioritize those. And that will be a feeder to hopefully the administration as well as the next council.
And what time is that?
Yeah, what time?
It is 7 to 9 on Monday night. It's currently in the library conference room. But like I said, there's some consultant coming in that's hoping to fix the internet on Friday, but that wouldn't be enough for open meeting law to, if we have to change, so it might have to shift to upstairs at the senior center. Because the auditorium's terrible audio
Oh, yeah.
for doing a hybrid meeting, so.
If I could, I just gonna know, one other thing that came out of the committee's discussion, which I think it would be extremely helpful, and I think it was you and the other members, I think it's a good suggestion, is we're trying to create essentially a webpage in which people can actually access the relevant reports and studies, because there's been a number of different consultants over the years, different areas of the water supply system that have been studied. So to have all that relevant information and, you know, just about, like you said earlier, everybody having the best possible information is, you know, on that. We're compiling that and having that posted so that the committee members and the general public have a better understanding of those things.
Yes, exactly. And so what we've, rather than trying to post things to the event pages, which, you
Right.
know, gets clunky, Andy and Kim Turner had a great idea to create a project page, much like, you know, the rec center page, or, you know, pick another project.
Yeah, that's been really good.
Where all of the information, all the different reports, and I know I saw an email, John Eric is working with Kim on this, to put, you know, all the past reports, AECom, PAR report, tie and bond reports, all of those things. The presentation for Monday night will appear there, so just that there is a repository for all the information in one
Yeah,
place.
it's very helpful about that.
While we're on that, just real quick.
Yep.
How much do we let the public get into our communications internally?
Internally, it would be, you know, I don't know, I mean, we should be thoughtful about that, you know, certainly everything we discuss in a meeting and all the minutes and all that would obviously be public too. And all the documentation should absolutely be public because the public paid for it, right? But I hear what you're saying, sort of, as we communicate between ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, we would have to be a little careful about some open meeting law stuff, just to make sure that we're clean there.
Cause I have,
And I just don't wanna
I have like
confuse.
I could, you know, I could upload like 1,000 docs, I mean.
Yeah.
But the goal is to keep it simple.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no problem with anyone asking for, you know,
Right.
public information.
Yeah.
This is what, especially for Monday night,
Right.
we're trying to keep it simple.
Yeah, Monday night for sure,
And I'm
as simple
still
as
getting
possible.
stressed trying to minimize the slideshow into the basic.
Yeah.
Because every time I get into it, oh, well, this started this, and this, you know, ended up why we did that.
Yeah, I would say Monday night should be as simple as possible for everybody, just as digestible as possible, right? And then with communications, you know, I wanna be as transparent as humanly possible without confusing people. And I think if you get too far into the weeds, people are just gonna get really lost in
No,
that.
that sounds good. I think I'll do the slideshow, and if anyone asks, the information is always there. If there's a question, we'll present it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Make sure to put your email address on the final slide so
Okay.
that people know where to reach out to you if they have sort of further questions. So,
And you think that you can really get this ready by January? Cause then you're gone. What,
you know, that is.
will you stay?
That's the real challenge. When we wrote the order, we originally wrote it as 6 months from first date to report, which would absolutely go into the new council. We amended it so that it is the end of this year. The challenge is the end of this year effectively is really December 8th for the council. That's our last council meeting. So nothing can really happen after that. You know, as we talked about the other day, when Peter, John, Eric and I met, you know, I don't necessarily think it's feasible to have something by even the end of the year. We can always amend the order to give it more time. It's just the clunkiness of, you know, the fact that I won't be there. And,
Right,
you know,
that's
frankly,
fair.
the other members are Jenny Donahue not running again, Jim McCauley not running for council again, of course, running for mayor. Of Rose, Con and Ed Cameron, both of whom are running, but there's no guarantee either one of them would be reelected, although it's very likely, it's very hard. But
You'll know
we'll,
after November who's gonna be there, and who's not, et cetera.
Yes.
So that you
But-
can revise as needed.
Yeah.
I mean, to your point, in either case, it's still gonna be the introduction of what is still a longer process for
Oh,
the
yeah,
city to be
yeah.
fully, because there's no way that in a couple of
There's no
months,
way.
we could fully cover and deal with, there's so
100%
many other
agree.
questions that come about, so
Yeah.
it's still gonna be, even to like the generic thing, it's gonna be still high
There's a
level even
ton
between
of
now and there,
information.
because there's so much information, we couldn't possibly go through it all
Yeah.
exactly.
in that time,
Yeah, and the city council, during the subcommittee, I asked, Jim if they could keep this going until the projects are done. And his desire, which makes sense, is to have a deadline, so we don't keep going for
Indefinitely.
frivolous reasons. I personally, there's so much information, the minute you start presenting it, it will get into the weeds quick, because there's so much information. We have multiple projects, each one has a history of decades. And if you don't know the history up to a certain point, we're gonna repeat the same mistakes that they did, because we aren't telling the full scope.
Yeah.
And that's dangerous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I would say, I mean, I would really hope that the next council would turn around and recreate exactly the same ad hoc, so that there
Extend it,
is
Right.
a council,
Yeah.
like,
Right.
members of the council that
Mhm.
are following these very closely, because, this is the next 10 years of Newburyport. This is
Right.
where all of our money is gonna go, this is where all of our,
Absolutely.
energy is
It's a
gonna
big
go,
part of
right?
CIP every year.
And the
right?
council needs very much to be very informed, and the public need to be very, very informed about all of this. So, and, for what it's worth, I am hopeful to be assigned to the Resiliency Committee as a resident come January. Of course, I will need to be appointed by mayor at that time to do that.
Right.
So I don't know. But I'll join you as just Johnny Q. Public if I'm
You can
not.
still come.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see.
Okay, that's good.
I think,
Yeah, it's important to keep it on the discussion.
Yeah.
For a long time.
Connie, what's
Sorry.
being done in terms of advertising for Monday's night's meeting? I mean, we can send it out to the resiliency e-alert list. But
Yeah, I would love that. I have asked all of the, this is why literally 10 minutes before I walked in the door here, what I was doing was trying to shift and figure out exactly where this meeting is gonna be, so that makes it complicated, because I don't want everybody to send out information and then turn
You
around
can
and
send a
change it.
blast just pointing to the calendar, we've sometimes done it. just
Yeah,
pointing to the calendar.
That's actually probably the best
That
bet.
way you still have the-
But to answer the question, Jane, I would love it if Resiliency would put it out. I have asked all of the counselors to send it to their, contact lists kind of thing, so that people, I have asked the administration to publicize it. As of an hour ago, it still was not on the city website. So I did send another email asking for that to happen. So, I'm trying to use all the angles I can. It's unfortunate, we just met last week, decided on this date, and so it hasn't been a lot of lead time, but
I'm sending out a announcement tomorrow about a bunch of things. I can add it as well.
perfect.
So Monday
Monday, the 29th, 7 to 9 PM.
at the library right now.
Andy made a suggestion.
Put it on the,
Don't do the venue,
Yeah, do it to the event page.
Yeah.
do it to the event, and that'll be the public, advance notice.
Yeah.
okay.
Maybe even say location to be determined.
Right, look at the
Click this
website,
link
yeah.
to find out exactly
Yeah,
where.
you're probably aware that there's an event downstairs.
That is the other, thank you, other
Storm surge.
big complication is storm surges downstairs, so we are stuck upstairs at best. And it's a competing crowd,
Right,
right?
exactly.
It's a very
There'll be a lot of
competing crowd.
overlap.
But we have to get this moving, and this was really the only night where it wasn't gonna coincide with another council or committee meeting or all that sort of stuff. So I agree, it is super unfortunate that it is the same exact time as a storm surge event, not only location, time, but
Right,
the exact same time, so it's the same crowd.
Is there a way to combine it somehow?
I don't know, I
Yeah,
thought about
no,
reaching
you-
out to
the
storm
agenda
surge,
for
but
that-
that seemed
You can't, the
wrong.
agenda for that is
That's totally
insure,
Yeah.
it's a insurance issue.
No.
And that's a whole different.
Is this Zoom or a hybrid such that the recording is still there for posterity for others who wanna capture the?
That is exactly the whole
Okay.
issue. That's why I'm having to potentially have to abandon the library, is because I so want this to be hybrid so that it can be recorded. and record it in a way people are gonna actually be able to hear it.
Mhm.
And the auditorium is not
That's
that.
gonna work,
No.
yeah.
And, you know,
Yeah.
God forbid, the internet still isn't working at the library on Monday. We wouldn't have that option at all. So I think the safest thing to do is just go to the senior center.
Yeah.
I just need Christina Manning to get back to me and say that that is what I can do. And then that will be.
I'll also just, I'll
Oh,
note.
wait a minute, I got an email from her. Still available. There you go. Let's move into the senior center upstairs.
Just FYI, there's a little bit of a.
To the boardroom?
Yes, it
Yeah.
has to be, because downstairs is storm surge.
How large a
Yeah.
space is that?
You'll wanna get
It's
there, it's a smaller
probably
room, you
twice
wanna
as
get
big
there
as this
early. It,
You can
And what do you-
accommodate
what do you
50.
call it?
It is called it's an ad hoc meeting. Sorry, I have to look at, it's,
It's- It's currently on the city calendar. It's ad hoc committee on water infrastructure prioritization. But Connie, it's on the calendar and it's listed as being at the library, which is if we send out that blast, say tomorrow morning and it's not changed, it's gonna be confusing.
I will from here walk downstairs and talk to Christine Jackson and tell her that I just got confirmation that it can go to the senior center and it will be changed.
Awesome.
You may wanna get there a little bit earlier, take a look at the projector setup, cause kinda like this room, it's a little bit of a Mickey
Yeah.
Mouse right now, so.
I used it last week. It was pretty easy.
We'll need
Yeah.
to remove the tables.
It's
Yeah.
way
maybe.
less than ideal, but we can take over the adjoining room. We're
Yeah.
gonna maximize as much space as we can
Okay.
get. But it's the only place where anybody's gonna be able to actually hear the recording. It's upstairs.
Which one, which room?
We're gonna take over, but they have a folding door between them, so we'll take
The
up the whole.
boardroom?
Is
The
that?
boardroom?
That's not the boardroom, that's the
Oh, it's
computer.
the,
It's the adjacent room. It's like the art room.
the computer lab, that's what they call it.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
computer,
different, yeah.
that's better. That's much better.
That's-
It's a computer lab, but it also, the computer lab expands so that it
Yeah.
can
It
get.
does, but it's sort of awkward linear, so it's
Yeah,
like
it's
the
very
way you
thin.
arrange the room.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
but at least you can fit more people in. I think
Yeah.
that'll be fine.
yeah,
I agree. It's better than doing it here.
yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
cool that it's up senior and
Yeah.
the downstairs people are there, so.
We'll put a big sign and hopefully the storm surge
Yeah.
people will get confused and they'll come to ours.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sarah. As Sarah
Is,
says,
is Rick
not-
Parker in the room?
I'm
Yes.
sorry, what?
Yes,
Rick, I don't remember if you did a lot of outreach within West Newbury, but last time we had a public meeting, it was I think last April, maybe 2024. We had quite a few folks come from West Newbury. Would you be up for letting them know, sending it out to your folks or having a way to advertise it in West Newbury so that you
Do
guys.
you want that
I'm
now?
not sure, I would,
I wouldn't do that right now.
I would introduce that here, especially given the space constraint.
No,
Yeah,
I would.
I need to leave, but I will say I did ask Angus to join, because of course the
Yeah,
IMA
that
is a
makes
huge
sense.
pieces of
That
all of
makes
yeah,
this.
I'm actually reach out to one of the Board of Water Commissioner
Yeah,
members,
Yeah.
just so
Like
that
high
he knows,
level.
because he might be interested in attending.
Okay,
And-
can you do that, or can you send me an
I'll
email?
I'll reach out to him.
Okay,
first.
but I asked Angus to come to all of our subsequent meetings, so
Yeah.
not only just Monday night, but all of the other meetings. I mean, the more he's informed, the more it's gonna help the IMA process. to be
Yeah.
but you
honest.
don't want all the residents.
great.
Now, and officially, just to help out, the ad hoc has a list of who's participating.
Yeah.
And didn't you have just one from West Newbury or two? A rep from West Newbury, I thought, right? Because the only thing I'm getting at, Rick, is they can join hybrid.
Right.
Yeah.
This is a situation, yeah, that's all I'm getting at. Angus might designate himself as the rep from West Newbury.
Yeah.
And then everyone else is public meeting.
Right, right. Yeah, so Angus, not to get too far into the nuances, but Angus, reports to the select board.
Yes,
The overall town government, Board of Water Commissioners in West Newbury is a separate entity, separately elected.
Yeah.
And there's somebody with a heartbeat there now, and if he actually were to sit in, he's very good, I think, and if he sits in and listens, it would just be good for him to be aware of what's going on.
perfect.
Yeah.
All
So
right, thanks so
I'll
much.
reach out to him.
All right, sorry, I have to run. Water Sewer Commission fun as well.
Thank you, Connie.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's why this person, Jack Haley, he's very rational.
Jay, did you want to go by the next item or?
I did. It's really hard to run a meeting from here. Yeah, and I can't remember if I mentioned it at the top of the meeting or not, that we were gonna try to wrap up early because so many folks had to leave, but then, I've bitten off more than we can really chew, but we're going to move the committee priorities to next month. You probably already saw that in the email, and I think the committee updates will go fairly quickly. But it is now 4, so why don't we move on to the Plum Island Turnpike with Kristen and John Eric, and we'll see where we are after that.
Kristen, feel free to share a screen. It sounded like you might have a visual. Did you want to show anything or?
Well,
It's fine if you don't. I got the impression I would add something.
yeah, thanks everybody. Kristen Grubbs, plan director. Our assistant planner Sadie was on, but she had to leave a couple minutes ago. So sorry to
I'm still here.
Oh, you're still here. Excellent.
Yes.
Just want to introduce everybody because I don't always get to these meetings. So sometimes you might meet Sadie if you haven't met her yet. Our assistant.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
So John Eric, how do you, considering where we are with time and all this, do you want to just, if you want to jump to the chase, I'm going to let you jump and I'll chime in.
Yeah, because you were just gonna do the general update.
Yeah, so let me give a 2-minute update and then we can just jump.
Let's do that. Keep it simple.
Because I don't know how many Plum Island Turnpike updates anyone's heard in a while. I know I haven't made these meetings.
And while you're thinking, if you can multitask while you're thinking, show the graphics on your screen.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. Because I need graphics for my presentation.
Okay. Okay.
Otherwise it's useless. Yeah.
Okay, I'll share whatever you want me to share. I got everything kind of set up here. Okay, so the project, as you all know, got a little delayed as a start, but really got underway in the spring. And thank you for all of you who may have attended the public meeting, which was late May. The summer's been a little slow, but the tie and bond team has been kind of collating all of the public input that was received at that meeting, which was a lot. And I would say it really ran the spectrum, as we can all imagine, is people have very differing opinions about what should be done, what the priorities are related to the resiliency of access to the refuge. Just in recent sort of project steering team meetings, we've talked about how we're really trying to keep an eye on the fact that this grant was FLAP funding, which is Federal Lands Access Program. So it's really needs to be very coordinated with the refuge. They're also doing some planning related to access, not just sort of resiliency access, but equity access, enhancing access, sustainable access, all sorts of things. Some of, I may have been the only one there. Oh, Jordy, you were there. Jordy's still on. They had a planning meeting a week ago to talk about their goals for the next 5-10 years regarding federal lands access. So again, we're really trying to coordinate with everyone. So that's why we wanted to spend a few minutes with you all. The work that's being done right now is they are sort of running a few scenarios of what design elevations they want to be focusing on for their recommendations. They're really diving into the engineering right now. So yeah, so I'll kind of stop there with the general stuff. John Eric, you want me to share the?
Yeah, ties, flood maps.
Okay.
Starting with, 1 of 5, the 5 sheets.
Yeah. Oh dear. Okay.
And if you can, flip the page when we're ready. I'll probably just only go from page 1 to page 2. We don't need to see all 5 because it's in the table.
Yeah. Okay. Did it work or no?
We don't see a graphic, we see just your desktop.
Oh, shoot.
Do you have two screens?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you do drag it over the other one, right?
Sorry.
Don't be
Spoke too
sorry.
soon.
Nope, don't be sorry.
Yeah, just by the way, going forward, well, she's pulling up, for both myself and also Kelsey, who will be our new environmental planner coming in, who'll be our next meeting, with us. If you have graphics and things like that for the meeting, if you send it to us in advance, we'll have it queued up and ready to go. So if there's anything like this in the future, just send it our way and we'll have it ready.
Yeah, this, real quick, it just happened last week.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, that's fine, yeah.
yeah.
Sullivan,
What's Kelsey's last name?
She'll be Julia's replacement, but it says.
Sullivan.
Full-time
Yeah.
position.
That is Kate Sullivan.
Yeah, we're.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Can you see
Sullivan.
anything now?
Yeah, we do, yeah,
Yes.
we see the map, yep.
Big
Okay,
enough?
Does that mean?
thank you, thank you, Kristen. So when Time Bond presented, a couple weeks ago, I was on vacation and they presented all these flood maps, there's 5 of them. And in the table in the top left, if you can kindly zoom into that.
That good?
That's good.
Yeah, that's good. If everyone can see, that's good. Yeah, I can see.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So what they're asking us, they're proposing to use the high tide line. So it's the annual highest tide line, okay? Our resiliency committee has historically agreed to use the basic mean high water. You know, remember mean high water plus sea level rise? So mean high water at the top, MHW feet. Mean high water present is 3.9. The boardwalk is like 4.2. Time Bond is using 3.9 at the turnpike. To me, that's insignificant. It's like close to 4. But going from present to 2030, that difference, 1.3, is the state's MC firm sea level rise number, just for the rise in the sea, 1.3 feet at 2030. So the reason why I say this table is based on the sea level rise from MC firm. And our group here, we did it a little bit different. You know, we were doing mean high water plus 6 feet. You guys remember that? And then we have all the variations. That's for 2100. They aren't even going to 2100 on this one. So yeah, so they're recommending the high tide line. High tide line is, you know, it's 2.1 feet. 2.3 feet more than the mean high water. So right now we're experiencing flooding, especially close to the turnpike, at the end of the turnpike by Sunset and Ocean. That floods, and that generally floods at an astronomical high tide. This elevation of the high tide line is the astronomical high tide equivalent. So the HTL includes the astronomical that happens, what, twice a year? So that's what the HTL is. So essentially 6.2 for today and then 7.4 for 2030. They're asking for confirmation on these numbers. And that's
So
the
can
report.
I just chime in one version of the same thing? So just because words work better than lines to me, but so current high tide 6.2. High tide in 2030, 7.4, high tide in 2050, 8.6, high tide in 2070, 10.4. Those are the MC firm numbers, and that's what is shown on this chart under the next to that red. So the question they're really wanting to confirm with everyone is, what design are we going to work with? What elevation are we going to use are they going to use for their proposed designs?
Like what?
Which is partly a question of timeline, right? How far out are we trying to accommodate, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
So this is not a tricky question. We already talked about it. We kind of know what the answer is, but I'm not gonna tell you what you should say. But go.
So remembering when we interviewed these folks,
Yeah.
my understanding was that they were intending, and our directive to them was to put together different options, alternatives for different timelines.
Bingo.
And so I'm not sure why they want
Bingo.
us to answer this.
That's what we
Right.
expected to hear.
Yeah.
We came to, Kristen and I came to our group just to present this because Ty specifically asked for Kristen and I to respond to this.
So they're asking you to
forgot
pick
what
one
their job
rather
was.
than the contract, which assumes they were going to look at all those
Multiple,
scenarios.
there was gonna be.
They're asking to reduce their scope to just one time.
Now,
Adaptation.
On one hand, Kristen and I could have said, okay, go back to the scope and.
Right, the scope is in the
But at the
scope.
same time, because it was last week and we had this resiliency committee
Yeah.
in between before we meet them next week.
Yeah,
We figured we'll at least show it. Because my answer, and this is where the group can dispute or whatever, this whole project is based on what can be permitted.
agreed. What can be funded?
This is what I expected you guys to say,
Right.
and Julie just said it.
Right.
Yeah.
What can be permitted, how high will they allow us to go, and then cost.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a combination of everything, so how high would they let you go? Probably the first.
yeah,
Because that'll dictate the cost. If they say go as high as you want, which they won't, but if they do.
Yeah.
Then we get back to, well. So.
Yeah.
And the
so-
one other thing that the last meeting spent a fair amount of time talking about was the need to assure that we are not building a fishing pier, right? Like, we need to be
Right.
looking at the refuge gatehouse and abutting properties along the road and assuring that we're not proposing to build something that can't be built because the abutting property is lower.
Right.
And that was part of the scope, wasn't it, as well? It was pretty explicitly written that way.
was.
To me, the answer is very simple. I think we just say, look, it's in the contract. You own the
Yeah.
scope of doing the full assessment of those ranges, not just one that you would now want us to narrow down to, right?
I feel like, cause I proposed to bring it here because they asked us to comment. Kristen and I were talking, and we wanted the input from this group.
Yeah.
Now I'm embarrassed
Kind
I
of
did because
bolsters.
it's all, you know,
Yeah.
but if you come up with something else, we're just,
No, that was prudent.
No, I think it sounds like everybody's the
Yeah.
same way.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're
and
getting confirmation.
Well, also, like, we can't really answer all the questions from both communities or the federal folks if we don't examine as many options as the range as we
Right.
can. Because they're gonna say, well, what about something in the intermediate in the middle here? Well, that we dropped that from the scope, you know, so.
And the other thing is just the other reason for bringing it here is really to refresh everyone's memory. This is a bathtub discussion for this project. It's not what we want to protect the turnpike from a storm.
Right.
That surge and storms are different. This
Right.
is twice a day.
Yeah.
What do we protect it to?
Yeah.
Bathtub, and that's what this is.
Yeah.
Right.
If we knew the answer to the question they're asking us now, we would have told them that
In
in
the
the very
contract.
beginning,
Yeah.
when we assigned them the contract. It
Yeah.
was very, like, they missed the point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
think it's
well,
a-
I don't think we need to, I think I was the only one on the meeting, so I think they understand this. I don't think they were sort of trying to snow us over, but we'll make sure that we're on the same page about that.
Jordy, did you want to chime in? You see your hands raised?
I wanted to ask, I guess primarily Kristen and John Eric as our leads on this. There's the basic question I've had all along with this project of, we have the obvious complication of this federal refuge focused, preliminary feasibility study funding focused on a turnpike that's owned by Newbury and Newburyport. And the audience Who is supposed to be, like, for instance, when we're doing a feasibility study for the boardwalk project, which we were talking about a few minutes ago, the audience is us. We're going to take this information and we're going to then move towards design and eventually construction, etc. Is it clear, or will it become clear in this process, who is meant to pick up this information and run with it, given the complexities of the different jurisdictions?
It seems to me
No,
that
not-
it's both communities
not at all.
and the feds. I don't think
Yeah,
it's just one.
This is a feasibility study regardless of ownership.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I think obviously it's tied in based on where we can get the funding for the studies and all that, but I definitely think because we don't know really how it's gonna be funded, how much and when, and you know, and how much the feds will put into it, I feel like it's definitely for all three, you know, simultaneously,
Yeah.
effectively. I mean,
Do we have ballpark figures on the cost at different?
No, because that's what the study's for. Kristen,
This is to scope a
Kristen could
bid
keep,
process. Or-
Jody, you all set?
I could just one quick follow-up. If I could, there's a lot to go through obviously in this study, but if I could encourage you all to try to have a focus from the consultant and the rest of the planning group of, it's the old thing of, if everyone's responsible, then no one's responsible. Tragedy of the commons. There's got to be some kind of, it can't just be information from my perspective, because it's too easy for either community to say, it's up to you to do something about it. So being able to hand off the baton of all this information to someone who's going to actually be able to use it and have some momentum going forward, I think is important.
yeah, I think it's important that
I
it be delivered
appreciate that.
to both, yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kristen.
I appreciate that point. I do think the way this grant was written, it was phase one of a multi-phase project. So I think the intention was to get FLAP to continue to fund this work. So to that degree, we have to keep the refuge in mind because that's how we're eligible. But yeah, getting the towns on board and, you know, who's the project manager, that's a huge, it's a good point.
Well, I definitely
to
think
make
that
sure we
Julie's
know.
point, the results should definitely be, you know, presented, if you will, to the city and the town too, because of course,
Yeah.
questions about when, how we're gonna fund things, you know, if you're the further growth that happens on the island, right, sort of conflicting, you know, forces. It's worthwhile for all of us to see that, to Joy's point, like, I guess, to have that presented to the city and town officials as well,
Yeah.
because it's a consideration for everybody, how is it gonna get funded or not,
But-
you know.
I do feel that we put this project out just for the result of what can possibly be done.
Agreed.
And then the next step is exactly everything that you guys are talking about,
Right.
Kristen, Jordy, and you were spot on. The other reason for this is even though we are not asking the resiliency committee for a comment on the cross-section, we figured you'd like to know. So this is what they've been working on from the public hearing that we held over the summer. We got feedback from the public, and this right here is the outcome and the proposal from Time Bond of what we're looking at. There's different sections, different cross sections for different areas.
Right, this is one, right?
So Kristen, you got the mouse, right?
Yeah, and this was first draft. You guys are getting an early peek. So please, you know, be like happy to take any information back and we'll, you know, keep you posted. But these are not final, is my point. We had discussion about, you know, does it have to be like, can the, you know, planting buffer be 3 feet instead of 5 feet? Can the width of the travel lane for the multimodal pass in some places be 8 feet if we are constrained by wetland resources? Like all of that is still being reviewed and discussed.
And to piggyback with that, when we come up with a concept that Time Bond has, that we concluded with the elevation and all that, this has to be, you know, this concept still needs to be reviewed by both communities, Kristen, because our planning department will have a lot to say, right? Do you anticipate that, or are we gonna go straight through the concept with the permitting people with this concept and go from there?
No,
I don't think we get to permitting.
No, no.
Before we,
well, assessing what the permit requirements might be, right? I understand that from the consultants, but I definitely think we need that internal discussion
Mhm.
first with the communities. That's, I guess, to me, the next question is, what is the next step in which the city and town, never mind the feds, of course, because they're part of the process clearly. When does the city and town next see the progress or the estimates of some of this that they can then digest and decide to give feedback?
Well, that's what I'm getting at.
Oh, okay,
That's what I'm getting at.
yeah,
After time bond gets to a point of, wrapping this up, taking our elevation, which is go as high as you can go and go as wide as you go. That's
Mhm.
for the
From the environmental.
permitting people.
yeah.
And as far as when to go to both communities for true review of the package, that is, I could look at the scope, but that could be more beneficial after we meet with the regulatory people.
I think it's definitely informed to some degree by that. I just wondering, and clearly there's gonna be dialogue in the regs. I definitely think, in terms of what was feasible, because there's a lot of resource area impacts of widening out there.
right,
But I think the real question is sort of just on a calendar basis, like, is it next summer that folks receive a report where we're looking at this and saying, here's possible cross sections, here's a
I
cross
just
estimate?
submitted a request for an extension.
Okay,
Next week was the deadline for this project, but they gave us so many years that the extension is easy.
I'd like to hear from planners and maybe from John Eric, whoever can answer. To what extent were the feds involved in this process? It sounds like the city and the town own it. Whereas from my perspective, to the extent that the feds are owning this project, the likelihood of getting funded with other people's money is enhanced. This is a big ticket item.
Yeah, so let me just give you the history of the flat. From day one, they made it clear that because it's access to their facilities, they made it clear that it's on both cities' public roads. So they said, while we're doing this, why don't you guys propose the cross-section that you need?
Yeah.
And they have been involved with the review. The feds, Ellie, and they attended the public meeting. And they're being asked to review this. So in conclusion, what I'm just saying is that they essentially said, hey, come up with what you want to make both communities agreeable with the cross-section. And then they just want access vertically to make sure that the road is open.
Right.
They don't need the bike path. I mean, the bike path helps them tremendously to get more people.
Yeah.
So that's why it's also an incentive for them to agree to a bike path.
well, to Barry's question, like, what I'm seeing is that they are the path potentially for funding for study and construction possibly down the road a bit. However, they basically handed off the management of some of this consultant work to the city and town for the most part.
The
for us, right?
planning,
Yeah, okay,
planning and project definition would be in our hands.
right.
100%.
Execution would be in theirs.
Well, our hope is that we're
Approval,
leveraging.
I would
our hope-
say-
Yeah,
Yeah.
our hope is that we're leveraging federal funds after the study here by doing.
They made
so.
that clear that,
Yeah.
that this is step one of
Right.
multiple grants.
Okay, I hadn't heard that at the outset. So that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Kristen said that. We said a
I might
lot.
have just got over my.
That's exactly fine. Yeah, this is step one, and they made it clear. There's plenty, in their opinion, at the time. Pre-Trump, there was plenty of money.
Yeah.
To move forward. There was hope to move forward. Is that correct?
So in terms of like a definitive calendar, I guess for this group's purposes, when would be the next that like we might, based on what you know right now anyway, when might something be coming back, so to speak, like a next deliverable or estimates of, some of this information with the consultants having whatever time they need? What, do you have an estimate of, like, is that like next year or is it like?
Oh, no, so we got an extension and I sent it, but we didn't hear back. Essentially, we put May for the completion of this.
Okay,
This is, there shouldn't be much work after this except for meeting with the regulatory people. And Kristen, from your managerial experience and whatnot, can you answer Andy's question is, when do you think we should request a formal review of the city departments, or are we asking the city departments to go to the public meetings and make comments then? I lost track of that.
So there's gonna be a second public meeting when there are recommendations to present to get feedback on. So that's coming. I thought we were looking at November for that, but it does depend on getting the extension. Then we need to, you know, rework the schedule with the consultant team. There are regular project team meetings. John Eric, myself, Rick Tainter has been representing Newburyport Livable Streets, Ella Weber representing the refuge. Our conservation agent has been attending those.
Right, but those are the working group meetings, right? It's really the public meetings that we're talking about, the November and possibly something next year when the report's finalized, right? That's when there's information for, say, city council and mayor and town officials to
Yes.
understand some of
Yes.
the numbers and the, yeah.
I don't know if was like the intention for some, I don't know. I can't speak for what Newburyport wants or thought, but I don't believe there was like some particular phase of municipal input. I think it's like the project team, the city and town and the refuge working together, represented by the people who are on the team, and any input now's
Oh,
a
I
good
see.
time.
Yeah, so I know that makes perfect sense to me, frankly, in context, given all the technicals. I was just thinking at the end of the day, there's some point at which maybe it's May of next year, right? There's some report, there's a final report that shows, at least for the benefit of everybody here in both communities, right? The ballpark estimates for the scenarios based on the elevations and the cross sections, right? There's some basic information that people can digest, to understand what costs and what improvements and, you know, permitting might be involved with one scenario versus another, right? There'll be some, you know, estimation of that people can, you know, irrespective of what happens going forward, that information will be of benefit to the feds and the city and town sometime, say, summer of next year. That information would be ostensibly available, right?
Sooner than that is my perspective.
Much sooner.
Public
Okay.
meeting, late fall, final report in the winter.
Okay, so sooner then. Okay.
Because, yeah, we're hoping that we can meet with regulatory people. She clarified as far as the scope, because I don't have it in front of me, I apologize, but we didn't have a definitive submittal to the towns, for review. We always, and she just refreshed my memory. Thank you, Kristen. We always anticipated that you guys would attend
Right.
public meetings
Right.
and these meetings. So this is a formal invitation for Jordy. I highly recommend.
Yep.
That was always part of the process, that we specifically had individual people, the planning department,
Right.
you know, the fire. I mean, each one, we had it planned.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of the format that she just refreshed my memory. We aren't gonna, so one way that I was thinking about doing it is just give an advance set. Distribute it
Yeah.
and say, hey, we're gonna talk about this at the next meeting,
Yeah.
and this is, please review. Your basic asking people to review. That's just like an internal thing. I always anticipate
Yeah.
sending it out internally.
Yeah.
To all the departments that care,
I agree. Yeah.
and then keep it like that.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
Jane, are we supposed to end in 5 minutes? Cause I gotta go.
Yeah, we
Good.
are. Thanks.
So-
I just wanna, before we wrap this up though, I just wanted to clarification in terms of your question and for what they're looking at and the elevation. I think the committee's answer was go back to the scope, but is that correct? Okay.
That is correct, and we'll just tell them that we presented it and that we are gonna keep this committee informed occasionally, and then we're gonna start distributing these for review.
Okay.
That's all.
It's great to get that update. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Can I discuss a question? If
Thanks, Kristen.
if you were to target 2030, you wouldn't be completed until 2030.
It's an obvious.
No,
right,
no.
yes.
No way.
2030 is not a target for us.
No.
Because it's,
No.
right, yeah.
Oh, no.
It's just, I guess I'm just wondering, and obviously, if it's in your scope, they ought to perform what's in the scope. But it just,
I mean, can I be frank? This is a feasibility study.
Yeah.
It's a snapshot at what the regulatory people
Yeah.
will allow when we meet with them now. In reality, things could change. CZM could have a change of heart. They could, the DEP could have a change of heart. The seas are coming so quick and furious that we need to start raising roads and be a little bit more flexible. That's what I hope. Is that gonna be happen? Who knows? The other thing, to your point, this is a feasibility study.
Right.
When have you seen a municipality go from a feasibility study to construction?
Right,
In 2 years.
Past 2030.
I mean,
it's supposed to be in the ground.
We're talking 5 years before we even get bid docs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, realistic then.
My point was even talking about 2030 seems to be like a complete.
We won't have a
absolute-
design by
Look at 50,
Yeah.
70, 100 or something.
People are still writing
30-year
Yeah.
mortgages
Yeah.
now.
Using
That throws them right into
Yeah.
Because the IT
Right.
setup is the way it is and we're.
And with,
With no assurance that they're gonna be able to access their own property.
Tomorrow night when I have my meeting, do I have to borrow your projector?
Or I can talk to you about it after, but rigmarole something with the thing on the floor, yeah. Sorry, Jane, defer to you, I guess, just FYI for like our next meeting purposes, so our next meeting is the 15th of October, and just as a reminder, we will have our new environmental planner staff person in the planning office here at that point too, so we'll have them brought up to speed on some of this stuff, so they'll also be able to listen in and chime in, and, you know, where they are at that point with some of this, you know, they're not probably still at that point, but a lot of this they'll be able to participate in and help going forward.
That is great news, Andy.
Yeah.
So we have 2 minutes left. Molly, did you have anything on 2.0 MVP 2.0 that you wanted to bring to the committee? That we can follow up online as well, but was there anything?
Yeah, I think everybody knows when the meetings are. We have scheduled, we have received 10 responses for planning vendors. And we'll be reviewing those next week. And then we have an internal meeting. So I think everybody knows what they're doing.
Okay, great. In terms of the resiliency checklist, it has been discussed at both the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board. No resolution as far as I know yet. It was more informational on getting feedback. Andy, do you have anything additional on that?
Yeah, I was gonna say, if it's right with you, if we could just maybe we'll carry it to the next agenda and touch base on it, just based on the feedback that we were able to get from the commission and the planning board, we could just pick up and just recap a little bit of that and then have a discussion amongst the committee about what we want to do from there.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay, great. So you'll bring that feedback to that meeting?
Yeah.
And I think everything else is sort of
Yeah.
covered, but there isn't much news, so I think we're in good shape, unless anyone has any last minute things that they're sure they want to have on the agenda next month or anything. Quick.
No, I mean, you don't have to put on the agenda per se, but there'll be the introduction again of our new environmental planner, which is a key resource for us moving forward some of this stuff, so. You don't have to have it as a bullet per se, but out of the gates, we probably should do an introduction for Kelsey's.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, thanks.
So meeting adjourned, is that?
Yeah.
Meeting adjourned. Thanks all.
All right, have a good one.
Take care.
So Andy,